All right, so I just want to welcome you to the Accidental Artist, the free online event. And today we have Carol Carter here, and she's a watercolor artist and an acrylic artist. So I just want to welcome you, Carol. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. It's fun to
So,
share.
so first, can you tell our audience a little bit about you and what you do?
Well, I'm a St. Louis artist, Midwestern painter, and I've been painting in watercolor for about 40 years. And I have a pretty extensive portfolio and following. I have my MFA from Washington University in St. Louis. I teach nationally watercolor throughout the country and as well as abroad. Occasionally I'm invited to Europe or South America to teach as well.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. So people contact you and ask you to be a part of it?
Yeah, it's invitation only. I go where I'm invited.
That's amazing. So I know on your website, I was just really drawn to the swimmers. And I know when we talked on the phone, you talked about kind of your technique with that. So how long have you said 40 years you've been doing watercolor. Is it always watercolor or do you kind of go back and forth between acrylic and watercolor?
There you are.
Yay!
Okay, all right. 40 years I've done watercolor, but I did 30 years as an acrylic painter. So I have a dual career, and I started out being a watercolorist, but now, I broadened my medium to an opaque medium as well. But now today I'm just painting in watercolor. And the Swimmers series that you were drawn to stems from my life growing up in Florida, where everything we did as children was in or around water, either the ocean, the pool, the sprinkler, the lake, the river, you name it, rain. So water is just a metaphor for life and activity. So the Swimmers stem from a very nostalgic image for me.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I hope everyone goes and takes a look at that. And you also had, it was like a timeline, like a growth picture. Was that, is there a story to that or something you can go in more detail?
Yes, my son was born 29 years ago. And when he was born, I decided to do a series of art that would take 2 decades to complete. So I wanted to do a portrait of him every year for the journey of him growing up and then end it when he turned 21. However, when he turned 21, the series of work was so interesting and had such a great following on my website and in my work that I decided to continue it until I'm no longer on the planet.
Oh, wow.
So he's 29 now, and I've done 30 portraits because I did two the first year.
Mm-hmm.
One is a newborn and one is 1 year old. And I've shown it twice in two different venues, one in Michigan and one in Illinois. And I think if I'm able to complete it the way I want, I'll be the only person in the history of art to have done a portrait a year of someone growing up in
Yeah.
that calendar year. Not like 10 in 1 year and 5 in the next, but one a year for life. This is pretty cool. I love it.
It's so impressive. How does your son react to it? Does he like it?
He loves it now. There was a time when he was an early teenager that he resented it, but he loves it now. He loves being the center of attention. He loves watching the evolution, and we collaborate on which image to share that year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so
He's
cool.
involved a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's good how you kind of capture his personality. When I was looking through him, it's almost like I could have a sense of who he was, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I try to encapsulate who he is that year rather than what he looks like because from the age of 4 on, kids are vastly dimensional. And
Right.
yeah, that's what I try now. And plus, I'm the client, so I can do whatever I want. I take great liberties with him rather than a portrait commission, which is somewhat stiff and
Yeah.
regulated.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So of all this work, what's your favorite thing to create? Or, do you like watercolor the best, or what would you say you love doing the best?
I love working in watercolor the best because I have more of an affinity for it, a natural ability, a natural inclination and understanding of the medium. Acrylic was very difficult for me. I was a self-taught acrylic painter, so everything I achieved in that medium was hard won. You know, it was a struggle and won with a lot of effort, whereas watercolor is more effortless and in a way brilliant. And I don't mean brilliant like I'm brilliant, but that the brilliance of the medium is allowed to shine through. So I'm more prone to do watercolor, actually.
Yeah, you've really created some like rich and dark colors whenever I was looking through your stuff. I'm like, that can't be watercolor. It's so unreal how you achieve that. I love it.
Yeah, lots of paint. Lots of
Do you let some of it dry first and then add more coats on top, or is it just a lot at once?
It's a lot at once. I don't do a lot of glazing, which is what you're describing, where the watercolor dries and then another coat is applied. I try to get that deep, dark, rich color right the first time, so it has the immediacy and the power of that brilliance of initial wash. So it's pretty hard to pull it off at an explosive color like that the first time, but I do a lot of homework prior to each piece so that when I actually execute the one painting, there's no too much room for mistake. I aim to have the mistakes weeded out by the time I execute the final piece.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, do you have, Carol, maybe like a favorite book or a favorite quote you want to share?
I was thinking about that. I don't really have a favorite book, but my favorite quote was said by a friend of mine, Mary Sprague, who's a St. Louis artist. And she said once, if you want to get better at being an artist, she said, go to work every day in your studio and work every day. And on Sunday, go to your studio and look at what you've done. And then you'll get better. And for some reason, that resonates with me. Every time I show up to work on a long, cold morning, like I don't really want to be there, and I think, that's what it takes to be a good artist. Show up every day to your studio and work.
Yeah,
so I abide by that. That's my favorite quote.
That's good advice because it does, just take practice.
It does.
Mm-hmm. And
diligence.
And learning through our mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
So who inspires you?
Well, I love Joseph Raphael, who's a watercolorist from France. Mm-hmm. I love Eric Fischl for his very psychological human drama paintings. He's an oil painter, but gorgeous work. I like Mary White from South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And of course, I love Georgia O'Keeffe, who is such an icon for American women artists.
Oh,
She's wonderful.
That's great.
And Hockney for pools.
Oh, yeah.
Swim pools.
I'm sure.
I studied him.
Yeah, to get the water. I mean, to get that feeling of it's real water. I'm sure that took a lot of studying.
Yeah, exactly. And Hockney was inspirational because he was the first artist I noticed doing it. So, yeah, he's a hero. They're all heroes to me.
That's great. Well, can you tell us a story maybe of a time you worked on a project that was really special to you and maybe describe why? I mean, I know we have your son. That's obviously probably your number one. But do you have something, another story maybe of a time that you worked on something that was really special and kind of why it was so special?
Yes. In the 90s, I was given a grant from the NEA to do an art project. So I decided to do something that was out of the box for me. I wanted to do an investigation of a region in Florida that was very psychologically and environmentally and politically charged with polarization of different views. And that community is called Belglade, Florida. And it's a small town about an hour west of where I grew up in Florida. And it harvests sugarcane. And to harvest the sugarcane, it's very, very controversial. It's very hard on the environment. It's very hard on the workers. It's very hard in a lot of ways. And I went and did a visual documentary of this industry, and then I painted about 80 paintings based on the imagery that I found and the messages I wanted to portray for 3 years, from 1995 to 98. And then I had a few exhibitions to explore these different charged issues. And that body of work is very close to my heart because it became a visual documentary and a voice to people that wouldn't normally talk about themselves. And I used my skills as an artist to explore controversial imagery. And I had no expectation of what it would do. And I was really surprised to see how well received it was and how people understood the issues that I was trying to describe and portray. And then as a result of that, it had several venues that kind of made sense for that politicized body of work. So it was very, very interesting for me. I never repeated it. I never found another political issue to paint about. I don't consider myself a political painter, but I did this one exploration and had great rewards from it, both personally and professionally. So that was close to my heart. It's on the website too, under Belglade.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. Do you find that it felt like it changed you as an artist going forward?
Yeah, it sort of changed me because it left me wanting to ask more of myself with imagery that I painted, to have more of a psychological connection to the work I painted rather than it just being decorative or facile. So I demanded a little more of myself after that body of work. But I was quite sure that I didn't want to be such a political painter going forward.
Right.
I wanted to have more of a balance in my own portfolio. But it was fun to do once, definitely. And if I find another issue I feel passionate about, I'll certainly rise to the occasion, but I won't seek it,
Yeah, I think that's important that you're doing stuff that you're passionate about, because if you're not, you're not going to have the results you want,
Right.
Yeah. Well, Carol, do you believe that anyone can use art to enrich their life?
Oh, absolutely. I would suggest everybody use art to enrich your life. It gives you so much more perspective and insight and wisdom and hope in going on to the future. It gives you a real lens of clarity, even if you're just a weekend painter. I tell my students to make art your serious hobby, because then you will always enjoy it. You don't have an agenda. You're using art to be creative and as self-expression, and you get feedback on a number of different levels. It's very rewarding. The whole, from creating to executing to your ideas to exhibiting, are all very, very rewarding and fruitful to us as human beings and the creative creatures we are. Even as cavemen, we were creating in the caves. It's part of our nature.
Yeah, I totally agree. So fulfilling.
It is fulfilling. Absolutely. Rewarding.
Yeah. So what advice would you give somebody who maybe has never done art before, or just, did art in 3rd grade and then thought it wasn't for them and now they want to pick it up again? What would be your advice on maybe their first steps?
I would say just work as much as you can on your own, on your free time. And then when you feel comfortable, join a class or two at a community college or a workshop level and align yourself with other creative artists and get some networking and also creative companionship, because we all seek one another's support, whether it's critical expertise or just sharing stories of the creative process or where to buy art supplies and so forth. But do it in small steps. Don't feel like you have to bite off a huge chunk. Just do it in small incremental steps and you'll be led to the next step. And nobody should feel like they're not important. I've had the most beginning students take my classes and launch very dynamic careers just with small steps. And that's how I started. One step leads to another. Don't overwhelm yourself. And the other thing I would like to say, and I really believe this, always enjoy what you do. Art should be done in happiness and joy, and it comes through in the end product. So love what you do and make it an enjoyable process. And then your client or the person who views your work will sense that and enjoy your creative effort.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And it's been so much fun talking to you, and I love that, you've been doing this for 40 years. So you've basically spent, the bulk of your life doing this awesome stuff. So I just love that. It inspires me to keep moving forward with art.
Awesome. Of course. Everybody should. We all need more artists. Mm-hmm. There's never enough artists.
Well, do you have any final thoughts for our viewers? Any last things you want to say before we go?
Oh, let me think. Just work every day. And don't be dismissive of your efforts. It does matter. We are creative, and it's very important to value what we do every day as art and artists, because it's just very important for civilization. We are important. Creativity is important.
That's great. Oh, thank you so much, Carol, for taking the time to do this. And I know the viewers are going to appreciate all your wise words and all your inspiration. So thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you so much, Heidi. We'll talk soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.